word learning thing. So I would like to go through briefly. So in this week, we will be covering the tuples, and these are the learning outcomes. I'll be discussing again. And what you need to do, you need to read the learning student required learning things here, and then from TP like Think Python version 3 chapter 11, or I posted all-in-one reading through the Google Colab. You can read that one also. I think I have added a lot more content to that all-in-one reading. So it's better to go through the all-in-one reading first before going with the chapter 11. So chapter 11 is a subset basically, but that one is a superset. So what you need to do, you need to submit 2 labs and 1 PS lab. I need to change this one, and not for this project. It is D1 module A10, not this module. And in addition to that, you need to submit the discussions if you don't attend the class, or you can submit by yourself. It doesn't hurt you. So tuple, what you need to learn, you need to understand what is the tuple and how it is differ from the list, how you can create, access, delete the tuples. We will learn zip and unzip functions. In addition to that, there are some tuple methods. We'll be using those tuple methods here. And at the end of this week, I'll be discussing the project 4 requirement. Okay, so these are the learning outcomes. So we'll describe and explain the tuples, including the creation methods, immutability, packing and unpacking, and differences from other sequence types. Apply tuple operations and built-in functions to access, slice, concatenate, duplicate, compare, sort tuple data in programming tasks. We will analyze the structured data by organizing the information using list of tuples, tuple of list, subtuples, nested list, and zip tuple structure, probably next week. Then we'll evaluate tuple relationship by comparing the values with relational operators and interpreting ordering and equality across the dataset. Then we'll design and implement some functions that use the tuples for returning multiple values, argument tagging and packing, and a structured data exchange between program components. So tuple, as I told you, tuples are immutable. What does that mean by immutable? Change. It can be changed. But later we'll see how we can change it, but not right now. What are the other immutable data structure that you have learned? Strings. Yeah. So in Python, basically strings and tuples are immutable. All other data sets are mutable. Okay, so we'll be learning how we can write a tuple from the scratch. So tuples, we need to create a tuple in different ways. So if you just write some comma separated things, let me create a new notebook. So tuples are a list of data, but they are comma separated, just like a list. So for example, if I'm just using a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I would like to print what is the type of this particular data structure. What do you think is a list or tuples? Or an error? Well, definitely list is like this, right? It's a list. Now, what if I don't use the square bracket? Is it still a list or an error or a tuple? Let's see. The basic is a tuple. If you're not using any square bracket, just comma separated items, they are tuples. But conventionally, we use parentheses so that it is more like a data structure, tuple data structure. This is like a convention. But if you don't use it, it will be the same result, the tuple. Okay, so this is the way we can create a tuple. And I told you, we cannot modify a tuple. We cannot immute a tuple. So before going to that, I would like to create a different way to create it, like different way to create the tuple. There's a function called like tuple. And print the type of this L1. So this is also a tuple. So we have created empty list, right? And then later we can populate the list. But can we populate the tuple? We cannot, is because tuple is immutable. So if you're creating a tuple like empty, you cannot modify it. You need to write something here so that when you are initializing it, you have some data. Later you cannot add. There is no add function in the tuple. You cannot add any item to the tuple. So I'm converting a list to a tuples. So through the tuple function, you need to put some other data structure. So if it is a tuple, then you are converting a tuple to a tuple. That is fine. But if you just use a comma separated thing, it is expecting a data structure. You cannot convert 1, 2, 3 to the tuple. Though 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a tuple here, but this is not a tuple. It's because this particular function is expecting something inside the parentheses. What is the data structure? It could be a list, it could be a string, it could be a tuple. So in case of a tuple, you need to use the parentheses like our regular convention. So there are two ways to create the tuple. One is like this way, just the value. Other way is using the tuple function. In case of using a tuple function, you need to specify what are the values in a tuple format or any other data structure like a list. Okay, now I have my tuple here. This is basically T1 tuple. How I can access those items? So as I told you, list and like tuple and list are similar. The only difference is the list is mutable, but the tuple is not. Tuple is immutable. That means we can use most of the list operations in the tuple. So how we could access a list item? Through its index, right? So if it is a list, for example, if it's a list, then I can access the list item. For example, I would like to access 5. So this is the first index, second, third, and fourth index. Zero, 1, 2, oh, sorry, should be 3. So the index starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 5. So if it is the tuple instead of the list, can we access the same way? Yes, we can access tuple in the same way just we have used in the list. So it's the same thing. The difference is previously the L1 was a list, now the L1 is a tuple. Okay. Now there is one important thing. If you're just writing L1 and empty, is it still a tuple? See? When you're not sure, just print the type. It is an empty tuple. But what if I don't have anything here? Is it an empty tuple? Error. It will be an error. Like it is expecting something. Well, in a parenthesis, there is nothing there, but I have my convention like parenthesis. Okay. Now, what if I have one item, one? Like 1, 2 is a tuple, right? What if I have only one item 1? Is it a tuple? It's just like an integer, just like a value. If you like to create a tuple, make sure you have at least 1 comma. So 1 comma is a tuple. Like 1 comma means like 1 time comma. The value can be different. Same thing for the parentheses. It is the valid syntax. How about this? Tuple and 1 item. Is it a tuple? Should be, but it is not actually. It's because I can write any data inside a parenthesis, just like an integer or float or a string. But if it is a tuple, it should have at least 1 comma, just like without the parenthesis. This is the syntax. Even if we have like 1 item, we have 1 comma. This is not an invalid syntax. This is the valid syntax for the tuple. So empty tuple, tuple initialization, and single value tuple. So this is a single value tuple. This is very crucial. Sometimes people ask the MCQ question in different interviews or some other places, that how you can create an empty tuple or whether this is a valid syntax or not. This is a valid syntax. Typically, we don't write this way, like 1 comma and then nothing. Right? It's the valid syntax in terms of tuple creation, single value tuple creation. Okay. Okay. Empty tuple. Just mentioned here like string and comma. If there is no comma, then it can be treated as a string. But if there is a comma, then it is not a string, it is a tuple. Okay. So I think they just mentioned here. Yeah, these are the basics of tuple creation. Now we would like to go through the tuple operations. What are the operations? First, the accessing, I already have told you, the accessing of the tuple, just like a list. And the last item can be accessed using the -1. So index start from 0, so -1 is the last index. That means -2 is the last before the last. Same way, -3, -4. So you can go forward direction, 0, 1, 2, 3, or backward direction, -1, -2, -3, -4. Either one is fine. Then the slicing of the tuple. Sometimes we need to slice the tuples. Well, I have some values here. Maybe I need to slice 200 and 300. How can I slice? Just like a list. Square bracket. Here we're using a square bracket for the slicing. Keep in mind, we are not using parentheses. So the right syntax is using the square bracket. If you use the parentheses, you'll have an error. It can be treated as a tuple here. So square bracket, then what's the syntax? Starting index and the ending index, right? So starting index is 0, 1, and the index is 2. Right? If you'd like to slice 200 and 300. Is it correct? How about the list? If it is a list, and I would like to slice a list so that it has 200 and 300, we're going to slice this way. Sure. Let me write the L1. Let me convert it to a list. It is not the 200 and 300. Just because the last index is not inclusive. That means we need to increase by 1 so that we have the last item here. Same thing for the tuple. If we use the tuple instead of a list, I'm just changing square bracket to parentheses. We just convert it to a list to the tuples. But you can see here, this is a tuple, a subtuple. That means I can create a new tuple. I'm not modifying this original one. I'm creating a new tuple by slicing from the original one. So this is like a new tuple, but this is not the original tuple. That means I haven't converted, I haven't like modified the original one. Let me try to modify just like our list. So for example, in case of a list, I can easily convert it here, right? So for example, this is a list. I would like to convert the 0, 1, 2, 3, the third item to 500 and print the T1. Then I have the updated list here, right? This is how we have updated the list. But what if I modify the tuple? This is my tuple. I can access the tuple item, and then I'm reassigning 500 to the tuple. You'll have an error. It's because tuple is immutable. So just a slight difference here, square bracket versus the parentheses. If you miss this slight, like a small information in the exam, probably you will just answer here, well, this is like a 100, 200, 300, and 500 instead of an error. So keep in mind about those slight differences. Okay, so this is the slicing. I forgot to mention you one thing is like in the slicing, there is an important information, stepping, starting, ending, and stepping. You can use the stepping there to step. So let me show you an example here. So let me write it here. So here's my tuple. I would like to slice, maybe I can add more item. So what I'm going to do, I would like to extract from 200 to 800. So that means from 1 to, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I would like to include the 7, I would like to use here 8. So this will print 200 to 800, right? But if I use stepping here, so the by default, the stepping is 1. So it will not change anything. But if I use the 200, it will just hop to the next one. 200, then next hop 400, 600, 800. Just like this. Okay. That means you can easily use the slicing method to find the odd and even if they are the odd and even, like one after another, there is odd and there is even there. But this is not a good approach. Like you never know that the next one is odd, the other one is even, so on and so forth. But if someone asks you like, well, I am creating a list or a tuple, the odd, even, or one after another, then probably you can use this slicing to find the odd number or even number. Okay, slicing, then concatenation and duplication operation. So what is the concatenation? Concatenation is like adding two items, just like our list. We have our list here, 1, 2, 3, or our string, 1, 2, 3. Then another list is like 4, 5, 6. Another string is 4, 5, 6. So how we have concatenated two lists? Well, L1 plus L2, which is not adding the numbers, but adding two lists. So if we print this item, it will create a new list by adding the first one and the second one. Same thing for the string. If we're just using S1 plus S2, it will concatenate string 1 with string 2 and create a new string. It never changes the S1 and S2. So just to be sure, this is my S1 and next one is 2. And to print after this line so that just to make sure the S1 and S2 are not changed. So the S1 is there, 1, 2, 3, S2 is there, 4, 5, 6. But this S1 plus S2 actually adding, concatenating two numbers. Same thing for the tuple. Like I shown you two ways. One is like L1, basically lists are mutable, strings are immutable. So this concatenation operation can be applied in both cases. That means instead of a list, if we use a tuple, that means it can be worked just like our string concatenation. So it will create a new tuple. It will create a new tuple by adding those two tuple items, not just adding tuple items one at a time, like not 1 plus 4, 2 plus 5, 3 plus 6, just adding two numbers. Now, do you remember the append versus the extend function in the list? So append is like we're adding an item at the end, right? But in tuple, we cannot do that. It's because tuple is immutable. Now, can we use an extend here to extend a tuple? Probably we cannot. The reason we cannot modify the original list. Well, we can create a new, modify a tuple, not the list. We can create a new tuple, which is like an addition of two tuples, but we cannot convert the original tuple. Okay, then duplication, like a repetition, just like our, for example, there are two items, A and B. Well, one important thing I missed here is like, as I told you about the list can be homogeneous data and heterogeneous data. Like if the items are same type, then they are homogeneous. If they are different types, like one is integer, another is string, another is float, we can still create a list. So in the tuple, we can do the same way. We can both use homogeneous and heterogeneous data. But typically, we try to create a heterogeneous data while we are creating a tuple. In a list, it should be mostly homogeneous data, but in a tuple, we're writing homogeneous data. When I'll go through the example, then maybe more clear why we're using homogeneous data. Sorry, heterogeneous data in case of a tuple. So right now they are homogeneous data, A and B, those are the string. So if I'm going to multiply it, it will not raise an error, rather it will multiply the pattern. That means it is creating a new tuple, not converting the original one, but creating a new tuple, but by multiplying this tuple, just like addition. So in the concatenation, you're just adding those items to the previous one. In the concatenation, it will add that many times, like a multiplication. So in terms of some repetition, you can use the multiplication sign. So this is not an error. Sometimes you can find this type of question there, like whether there's an error or not. No, it's not an error. It will raise, like it will have a value, like repetition of the original pattern or a list or other items, not the list. Okay. I need to delete it. We'll discuss it later. Now, deleting and updating tuple. Well, I can easily delete a tuple, but can I update a tuple? Let's go through the deleting part. Can you delete a tuple? So here's my tuple, 10, 20, 30. Can I delete a single item? Well, I can delete, but normally in a tuple, I cannot. That's because if I'm going to delete an item, I'm actually modifying it, but tuples property doesn't allow me to do these things. That means I cannot delete a single item, just like a list. I need to delete the whole tuple. Either delete the whole tuple or you need to use it. Keep it or delete it. So you can use the del keyword to delete the whole tuple. Now, if I'm going to print the coordinates, so here's my coordinates for an example. I'm going to delete the coordinates. So before deleting the coordinate, I would like to print and then print again after deleting the coordinate. So for the first one, it prints. So this line is printing from here, line number 2. So this is line number 3. Then I'm deleting on line number 4. At the line number 5, when I'm again printing it, it shows me it's no longer defined. That means when I'm deleting it from there, it removes the memory allocation from the RAM. It is not allocating any memory to the RAM. That's what it's showing. It is not defined, like a name error. Okay, now the updating. As I told you, we cannot update a tuple, but there are some ways we can update. Well, this is not the right way. Like we are violating the structure of a tuple. So the structure is like we cannot modify it, but we're violating their condition. So to violate the condition, we need to use a temporary data structure. The very related data structure is a list, right? That means we can easily convert a tuple to a list to a tuple. So for example, this is my tuple. If I'm going to convert a list, what is the function to convert anything to a list? Do you remember? The list function, right? We owe a lot of chocolates. So I can easily convert anything to a list. So for example, if it's a string, I can easily convert a string to a list using the list function. We just extract each item at a time and put that item to an element for the list. The same thing, if I'm converting a tuple to a list, it is more convenient. I have each item separated by comma, so you can easily convert those items to a list. That means I can easily convert a tuple to a list. Well, I have the list. I have the flexibility to do anything there. I can append here. So here is my list. I can create a list L1, for example, and then I can append an item 1000, for an example. Here's my updated list. My updated list is like I'm adding a new number. And now I know there's a function called like tuple there, which can convert a list to a tuple, or anything to a tuple. So right now we have a list. So, well, in that case, I cannot use the, like, I'm not using the same tuple. What I can do, I can reassign the tuple to that variable or create a new variable. So if I'm using T2 here, that means I'm creating a new variable. If I'm using T1 here, that means I am updating this variable, like whatever the value there, swipe, and then it reassign the new tuple to that variable. Basically, I'm using the same variable. It is a location to the memory. And then I'm converting it to a list, adding it, like extending it, then converting it back to a tuple, then reassign that tuple to that the original, the variable. Now here's my tuple. But initially I told you that you cannot modify the tuple, but there are mischievous ways to convert a tuple, like to modify a tuple. The same way, this is like an append. You can remove an item, like pop. That means you're removing 900, and then now have like one item less, the tuple. But typically, we don't do this. When there's a tuple, that means by book, we cannot modify it. But in case we need to modify it, then these are the ways. Okay? Any question at this point? No? Okay. So tuple assignments, sometimes we need to assign two variables. For example, like I have a variable A, or maybe the XY coordinate. So X is like 10, Y is like -10. Maybe I can use those two values in my function, whatever the function I have. Here's my function. So if I have like three coordinates like X, Y, Z, people are trying to use 999. Have anyone used Z as a 999? Typically, the web developer are using 999. Whenever they're trying to pop up any item, it is not showing. 999 is like the last one, like 1000, the last one. It means 999. That means it is the obvious pop up. So they're using 999 basically. So if it's like XYZ, I have like three items here, three variables. So instead of writing three lines, I can write all those things in one line. So this is basically a tuple of variable and tuple of values. This X is pointing 10, Y is pointing -10, and Z is pointing 999. Well, I told you, you can or cannot use the parenthesis. It's not required. If you're not using parenthesis, still it's a tuple. So in case of assigning variables, multiple variables, people are trying to use this type of convention. So basically, this is a tuple. You are packing and unpacking tuple. Well, I'll tell you the packing and unpacking later. So this is the tuple assignments. Else. Tuple at return values, but I'll discuss these things later. But I would like to discuss the argument packing. Do you remember this type of variable? What is the variable arguments? For example, I would like to add three numbers. And I'm just calling the function with 1, 2, 3, or calling the function 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you remember this type of function? Like I can write a function called like add, but the parameters can be different, like 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever it is, like a variable. What we have used there. Like if I write return A, B, and C, A plus B plus C, it means it can be worked for the first one, but not the second one. But if it is like 1, 2, it will not work. It's because this is like a 3 required arguments. You need to pass at least 3 parameters there. But since we don't know that how many items we would like to add, we have used a variable arguments there, right? Do you remember? I forget it. It's like a variable naming argument. And in that case, what we have done, we have used a loop there for item in args. Then maybe you need to create a holder, like a result. And then you need to add the result with the item. And finally return the result. Right? Did I write the right syntax? What I missed?
Is it the asterisk?
Should be an asterisk. So if it is not an asterisk, that means we have only one variable here. Okay. For you, to catch. So if it is not an asterisk, that means we have only one variable. If there's an asterisk, that means there are like multiple variables there. Now, did you get a chance to print the type of that argument? This is basically a tuple. So you already have used a tuple, but you didn't know that it was a tuple. You're actually iterating the tuple by the item and adding the item with the result and finally return the result. So you're adding asterisk argument. This argument was the tuple. So this is how you can pass a tuple as an argument. And this is also called like argument packing. So right now we have like 4 items or 3 items. This asterisk argument is basically packing all together. So one item is representing the whole tuple, whatever the value. It could be 2 items, 3 items, 4 items, variable items. So this is like a packing everything in one box. This is our ARGS variable. Okay. Now the important thing is like tuple packing and unpacking. I already told you about the packing things. Now, what's the difference between packing and unpacking? Right now, this args is a packing, right? Let me print this one. What the terms? So this args is a tuple, and it has like 2 values: 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. First time 1, 2, second time 1, 2, 3, 4. That means this is like unpacking everything together in one variable. Then whenever we need it, we need to unpack it. Like I need to add all of those numbers. How I can unpack it? Well, here I have unpacked it. I know it is like a sequence. That means I need to iterate the sequence. I don't need to use the asterisk here. Asterisk is referred as like it is a variable argument, not one single argument. Then I can easily iterate, like unpacking those numbers. Now, instead of that, if I just use a different way, like our XYZ, and I'm just packing XYZ as a coordinate. The coordinates are the XYZ. I just packed all 3 coordinates in this variable coordinate. Maybe I have a function called like, I would like to increment the coordinate by 5. So it is like increment coordinate. And here's the coordinates. And my job is to increment X by 10, Y by 10, Z by 10, for example. Now, right now in this coordinate, I have all 3 values. Now, if I just add coordinates plus 10, that work? So right now my coordinates are all 3 values together, like packing. So this coordinate is the whole pack. And my goal is to increment X, Y, Z by 10. So why don't I use this one? Just coordinate plus 10. This means, so this is my tuple, for example, XYZ. What I'm going to do, I'm adding 10 with this one. Is it a valid statement? It is not. We cannot add a tuple with a number. So how I can access the first item, second item, third item, and then increment by 1 and create a new tuple? How can I do that? Well, these are in the packed version. I need to unpack it first, right? So the first version. The first task is to unpack. Well, it shows here. So this is my coordinate. I unpacked it in this way. So when I'm writing one variable here and a tuple, this is called packing. And when I use like, I have like this packed variable and unpack it with three variables in a tuple, then it's called like unpacking. So this is the packing and unpacking in a tuple. Now, why do you need to use this type of packing and unpacking? Well, maybe I would like to pack one student and his grade, or her grade. That means I need to make sure that no one can see that particular things except the designated person. So what I can do, I can create a person called like John, for example. First is his name, then maybe his course, then his grade, then the grade point, for example, 95. This is the data for John. And so I told you that in tuple, we typically use heterogeneous data. This is the heterogeneous data. First the name, then the course, then the grade. All three are string, but the fourth one is the number, integer number. It can be a float. So we are just packing different types of data, heterogeneous data, to this name, John. We can create another student like Bob. Okay, so this is John and Bob. I can create this type of tuple for all of my students, like all of my 40 students. I can put all of this information. Now, at some point, when I need to know, well, I need to know what is the John's grade point. How can I do that? I need to go to the John's tuple and then go to his particular position, right? So what I can do, I can create a function like find grade. Okay, for grade points. So I need to call this function and to find the grade point. Maybe I would like to print the grade G points and print the G points. How could I do that? Well, I know. Maybe I would like to find the Bobs. So I just put the Bob information here. In that function, well, this is like a student, the Bob. And what it should return? Well, I found some of you didn't remove the pass. Whatever you have done here, and at the very end, you have used the pass. It's better to remove the pass at the very end. Pass is just like a placeholder. If you don't have anything here to avoid the syntactical error, we can just write a pass. But when you're writing something, then you need to remove the pass, at least with the return things. So it will return the grade points, right? But I don't know what is the grade point here. This is like undefined variable. What I have here, a tuple, a packed version of all information. That means I need to unpack it. How we can unpack it? Well, what are the information in that particular student? So I can write here like equal student That means this is my tuple. I'm going to unpack it. What are the information there? Well, I know there are like 4 information. What are the 4 informations? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Actually, I don't need it. I need only the G points. Because I don't use those 3 places. That's why I'm just using underscore. If I need to know the grade point, probably I need to use the grade there. This is the grade and this is the grade points. But my plan is to return the grade points. That's why I'm using, even if you're writing grade, it doesn't affect you. We're just returning grade points, 1 variable, and we're accepting these things as a variable. Let's see if it prints what? For Bob, it should print 81.05. A lot of items. At 1.05. So this is basically called unpacking. So whenever you need to unpack any tuple, it's better to use a function. So that using the same function, we're just passing another tuple and it returns the breakpoint for John. What if we don't have a function? That means we need to find the John, Bob, Joe, whatever the name every time, and then unpack that student information. And from there, we need to find out the grade points. If we have a function, we don't need to do these things again and again. Now, if I need to return the grade and grade points, how could you return it? Grade and grade points. Now we are returning 2 items, grade and grade points. One thing I missed here that I told you I will come here again is like tuple as a return type. Tuple as a return values. So what I can do, we can return those 2 items in a tuple, a packed way. That means this function returns a tuple with those 2 information, grade and grade points. But this one is 1 single variable. So what it should print? 81.5, like 91.5. So right now we're returning 2 items. But here we have like 1 item. Will it return error?
I'm pretty sure right now it's saying that full to G points.
Is that tuple to what?
I'm pretty sure right now it would say a tuple to G points, but we can assign like
Okay,
we can assign it to multiple things.
let's see. How many of you think it's an error? I'm returning 2 items, but accepting 1 item. Will that be an error? Let's run it. It's a tuple. It's because I'm returning a tuple. It's a packed version, a tuple. This G point is a tuple. Now, if I don't use these, will that be a tuple as well? Let's see. It means we're actually thinking like, well, we are returning 1 item and G point is like 1 item, but instead of 1 item, we're returning 2 items. Even if there are 2 items, it is returning as a tuple. If we're returning multiple items from a function, it returns as a tuple. Otherwise, it returns 1 single item. Otherwise, it returns what? A none, right? So first, none. Then if we have 1 item to return 1 item, if we have like multiple items, it is a tuple. So this is my tuple packed version, but I haven't unpacked it. I just print whatever I found it. What I can do here, I can unpack it. So the first item is grade. That means I have to put here like grade as the first item, and second item is the G point. Now G point will be the 95.01. We're reading two items, but we're printing one item. But if they ask you, well, what's the grade then? Not the point. Then it's a grade. Returning as a tuple, accepting as a tuple. But if you're not accepting as a tuple, like a variable, then it's a tuple. Question? Yeah.
Is it order specific?
Yes. It's because so this is like a tuple, for example, 10 and 20, we're returning 10 and 20, right? Or maybe not 10 and 20, 10 and F, those two things. So the first item is 10, second item is F, right? That means when we're accessing this with X and Y, X will point 10 and Y will point F. So if you are just writing this way, then you will have the right answer. But if you're using X, Y, and Z, what do you think? We have like 3 points here. Grade points, and name, for example. I have returned 3 items, but now I'm extracting it with, like, I'm reading 2 items, but I'm extracting it with 3 items. With 1 item, it is fine. It is like a tuple. But what if then, like, if it is a 2, it is also fine. It's just mapping. If it is more than 2, not equal, then probably have an error. And what is the error? Tuple not enough value to unpack. It is trying to unpack here, but we don't have enough value. So we have like 2 points here, but we're unpacking with 3 items. We don't have enough value to that particular tuple. And what type of error it is? It's like a value error. Now, if you're using here like try and accept, some error message like enter valid argument. Here inside the try, you are getting some item from the input function. Name, for example, not the name of the grade. So my grade is like, for example, 85.9. Oh no, maybe I'm just writing my name as a grade. It shows enter a valid argument. Well, if I'm just writing my grade properly, still showing enter a valid argument. That means we're not sure for what reason it gives me the exception. So the first time it gave me the exception from here. The second time we have the exception from here. That means it is better to use the specific type of error so that when we have a value error, it goes to the value error things. When it is what's the type error example? It is also a value error actually. So both are value error. What can we do with the type error? So for example, type error is like this: G plus 10. So right now, enter name. Is also a string, it can be added. What I can do here? Oh well, I can use here like division. then definitely it will be an error. So first name is like 87 or whatever. We have a type error. We haven't handled the type error. If you're writing here like, well, another exception, it's a type error. Enter a valid name. And for this one, so for the first one, it shows me like this error. Let me write something here like 87. Let's give me this one. For this one, like 87, I can easily convert this one. Like 87, then divide by 10 is fine. Whenever it goes there, it will raise this error like a value error. But whenever we don't have anything here like this, now it's a type error. It goes to the next exception. So right now you understand a lot of exceptions. So it's better to use different types of exceptions, not just like generic exceptions. Does that make sense? Any question? No? Okay. See what I missed. So I already covered this, deleting, updating, tuple assignments, tuple return values. Well, there is a function called like div mod. Have you heard the function div mod? Well, so for example, this is my A, 100, B is like 2.5 or maybe 3. If I ask you what is the quotient and what is the remainder, how do you find it? So A divided by B will return what? Well, oh no, it gives me the answer. Okay, you got the answer. So 1 divided by B. So this will give you the fractional value, 33.33333. For this one, it will give you 33, the quotient part, right? If I ask you what's the remainder, the modulo, right? 1 modulo B will give you, I need to turn off the auto complete thing. I don't know, I'll check it later. So it'll give you the 1, right? Now there's a function called like div mod. If you pass A and B, it will give you the quotient and the remainder together in a tupled way. It will give you the quotient and the remainder here. So since it is a tuple, so we can use here like quotient and remainder. Since it's a tuple, I unpacked it at a packed version, and then I unpacked it with 2 like different variables. So I can just print only the remainder, just like a 1. This is the important function that you may need to use for different calculation later on. It is really inconvenient to use like this way. If you need both at a time, quotient and remainder, like forward slash. So 1 slash is fine, like just division, but forward slash, sometimes you don't understand it, you don't remember it. So it's better to use this type of function. Okay, argument packing, then packing and unpacking. The last one for today's lectures are like list of tuples and tuples of list. confusing. I have a list of tuples and tuples of list. I have a list of tuples. I have a list of tuples and then tuple of list, right? So what I can do here, I can create a list first and a tuple, for an example, like John. To remove, return, go back. Okay. I have two tuples here, John and Bob. So what I can do, I can create a list of tuples. So this is my new tuple, like students.
So students a list or?
Well, students, this and this, right? It's the list. And what's inside the list? Two items. What are those two items? Two items of the tuples. Right? Now, if I have a different one, like students, I would like to extract the tuples name, for example. This is the tuple's name, right? I'm sorry, this is the tuple's name should be this. So students will return what? The names, right? The names. Now, if I use another, or maybe I have to slice it. Just name and the course. The name and the course. Now it's a list of tuples. For the first tuple, it is the name and particular student course, right? Is it Malam?
I think so.
You work with.
Could I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. Please proceed to the nearest exit and evacuate.